Hey Alice, would you say that Billy Joe Armstrong has a joyful radiance?
Good question. Do I think if the guy from Green Day has a cycle radius?
Yeah,
I think he has a good radiance when he lost his set at the I Heart Music Festival because they had to be replaced by Asshole and could not finish
right.
the set. So
Thanks
if
for reminding me of that iconic moment.
It's so good. Listen, if anyone's listening to this podcast, please look up I Heart Music Festival, Billy Joe Armstrong. So it's hilarious. He just loses it because I think they went 4 minutes longer and they had to place asshole, and he's just losing it on set. It's amazing. It's high quality content approved by this podcaster.
Welcome everybody to the
Yeah.
Gemini Movies podcast.
Yeah, we cover movies, we cover Green Day, we cover Geminis, we
Uh,
cover
that that question I came up with because it was used as a turn of phrase in a review of the soundtrack of one of the movies we talk about today.
Yeah, we're gonna talk more about the soundtrack in later in podcast in this magnificent podcast. I don't know why I'm doing this. Before we start talking about the movies, always we have a quick segment about what we've been doing lately, what we've been watching, consuming, etc., etc. So let's go. First, Luther, what have you been doing?
Gaming,
Anything in
uh,
particular?
just some mild KOF and some Total War. But I haven't been too intense about gaming lately. I also had a lot of hiking because now it's the season, so I've seen a lot of nature. That was nice.
And that's nice.
And
Any?
and
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with frigging the Northman, and I put everything about that in my brain. But
Yeah,
now
you've been
yeah,
talking about that lately.
yeah. But I think I can the hypnosis is wearing off. That Echoes has put me on, and now I can return to reality slowly.
Yeah, it's like that Eminem's that lyric. Return to reality, mom spaghetti. Yeah, okay. I've been not doing I've been mostly just doing the things. I've been watching movies, of course. I've been playing video games, watching TV shows. I've been playing a couple of things I want to maybe just talk about quickly. I've been playing Citizen Sleeper, which is a very kind of interesting little game. It's not technically a computer RPG or an RPG. It's meant to evoke a tabletop RPG, and it's kind of adventure game esque. Basically, for most of the game, you have actions you can do, and you can spend dice points on certain actions, which will take time in the dice you have because those dice in this game and the
Huh.
most and the dice you use, the ones with bigger numbers, you get bigger chances of doing well or passing.
Oh,
It's
so basically like a skill check.
yeah, it's interesting. The white thing is pretty good as well. It's kind of like cyberpunk, but also it's kind of doing its own thing beyond the usual trappings of it. There's some there's some interesting stuff. There's actually some kind of solar punk elements in it, which I find interesting. So that's been an interesting video game. I also been watching Olias no Kamen Rider from the 70s. The Olias no Kamen Rider
Okay.
so, and it's fascinating a lot. So the first 13 episodes of Olias no Kamen Rider is barely intense for a 70s kid, so horror show. And then the lead actor broke his knees doing a stunt.
Damn.
So they replaced him with Kamen Rider 2, which is his actual name in the show, Kamen Rider 2. And
Yeah,
the show
right.
and the show starts with a lighter tone. But so this is interesting. The show has a thing of after those 13 episodes the show gets lighter. It does get lighter, but it then returns to be horror because Kamen Rider 2 gets crucified at various points. There's a guy So the show has like a format of like having various villains who like show up for like 10 episodes and then get replaced and defeated by the big bads. And one of the guys is just like an old Japanese dude in a Dracula costume, and it's amazing. He
That's
shows
good.
up in
That
like
sounds good. Yeah.
he shows up in like most shows up in like the most horror-inspired episodes. It's a very interesting show. It's very much like of its time, but they do a lot of interesting things and switches from it several times. They introduce like the Kamen Rider kids with a group of like kids that follow Kamen Rider around because they wanted to get they wanted to get the kids in the marketing for the show because the kids are watching, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
And it's very interesting. It's like a very old like 70s kids, so but it has a lot of interesting things. They contemplating like mentions of like Nazism. They don't really fuck around mentioning that the big bad guys of the show are like Nazis, and they actually are very critical about that because the show was like a reaction to like post World War II and like Japanese fascism was relationship with Nazism. So they do a lot of commentary on that, and it's genuinely pretty dark at times and pretty scary. It's an interesting watch, genuinely.
Good.
Yeah, besides that, I watch a lot of recent movies. I watch quick reviews. Last night, watched Northman. Good movie. Very good movie. Found out Agos is a Conan Barbarian head, which makes a lot of sense. Watched Mobius. Is one of the worst things I ever watched in my life.
A
Not
real
gonna lie.
Morbius sweep.
Yeah, I've been swept by the Mobius. I've been swept by
Morbid
Zelda as well.
time.
I'll say that movie has a vampire tank. That's very cool. That's very awesome. Shouts out to the vampire tank. If I think CGI bad, of course. What's Alalala? Very fun Indian action movie. January, a very fun time. Has one of the best dance scenes in cinema ever.
Definitely.
Suppendale, which is just a bunch of mediocre American comedy sketches and a very weird gross thing that I still don't know why they put in the movie. It's probably the most mediocre of the ones I watched, and that's it.
So, how did you enjoy these two movies?
This one I can actually sum up pretty well. I very much enjoyed Happy Feet. I think Happy Feet has a lot of interesting things that I'm looking forward to talking about. It's a bit. Here's the thing. I thought Happy Feet for years, even when I watched it as a kid. I was like, "Oh, this is some kiddie shit. This is just a movie about the penguin." But I was surprised how like thoughtful, like creative, and like just very animated the movie is. It does a lot with animation as a medium, with like mocap. It has some genuine interesting themes. The music, while very like pop music, does some interesting stuff with like a very like generic pop soundtrack. It's genuinely a very interesting movie. I like it a lot. Surf's Up was kind of nothing, to be honest. It's just kind of nothing. Like, it's hard to summarize. It's just kind of nothing. Just a bunch of like surfer dude, like, here we're making a parody of SPN jokes for like an hour. There's some like weird moments, but it's kind of a nothing movie. Just doing bits and jokes. Like tying up the thing, it kind of reminded me of, honestly thinking about it, it kind of reminded me of like the new Chippendale movie. Because it's just a loose connection of bits and jokes and gags.
Yeah, I can definitely see what you mean there, yeah.
Tied under like a unifying thing, but it's still just very loose and very nothing. I cannot even remember most of the not I can remember them, but I cannot go, this is an epic move, this penguin guy there, etc, etc. I'm
Yeah,
guessing
we're both not surfing experts, but I guess we can talk at some point like about the reception from surfers.
Yeah, the surfing community love this movie, but we talk
Apparently.
about that. Yeah, apparently, if you want to surf and hate the movie, go to my legal office.
Maybe there's just a very vocal minority that just says they think this is a good surfing movie, and they're just much louder than the people who say it's bad. But I don't know.
I don't know how many. How many? I said I don't know how many surfers have watched this movie.
Yeah, same. No idea.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think I'm on a pretty similar line when it comes to like how I enjoy the movies. Um, Happy Feet is definitely like the one I enjoyed more. There's more going on. There's more to chew on. Uh, in comparison with Surf's Up, there's just a lack of substance, I guess, and it's very much a sports movie. It's just animated sports movie with a bit of full documentary style behind it, and I'm just I never get like fake documentary movies. Most of the time, I don't get them. Like why people like them a lot, because for me, it's just like it's just a, a device that you use in a story to like it's just a framing device, and the story itself has to be like good for the framing device to even matter.
Yeah, we go more in this and talk about the animation and everything about these movies. I will say, I think that this is different even from those movies because this is very much using the parody, the like fake documentary thing to parody sports media. So like so it's even more niche in that aspect.
Yeah,
So
it is inspired by like specific uh, surfing documentaries and surfing movies.
yeah, and like it feels like it wants me to already be like I won't spoil this because we talk about this one, not spoil. Like I watched some interviews with some of the production team for this and people working this, and like there's actually quite a few amount of surfers that worked on this, and you can feel it because it feels like something that I would maybe like more if I was a surfer, if I could get into the surfing jokes and aesthetics they're doing.
Yeah, I'm gonna get into the like. This is not without merit. It's just not very appealing. So before we get into the nitty gritty, let's put out some content warnings. We got discussions of racism and blackface, cannibalism, toilet humor, and some not safe for work topics in this one. We're gonna talk about the context of this when it came out, the cultural context.
Yeah, the cultural context is complicated because there's not besides the penguins, besides the main aesthetic of penguin movies. This is not we unify the artisans this time.
No, the penguins are the like commonality here, but I guess let's talk about the penguins first, and then we can talk about the other things. I just want to
Yeah.
mention, just so the listeners know that I have listened to a bunch of 2007 hit singles before I recorded this podcast, just to get myself to like trick my brain into thinking that I'm in 2007, so I could like recreate the mindset of like that time. And I think it worked, and I think Daughtry is a bad band.
Wow.
That's just so the listeners know. So let's talk about penguins and
Yeah.
the 2000s.
Yes.
So you grew up in that decade, you know. So how did you react to like the penguin wave of like animated movies and
Uh.
March of the Penguins?
Yeah. So I am the official Zoomer of the podcast. I'm 23 years old, born in 1999. I'm the youngling, like in Star Wars. So yeah. Like as a kid I was not that much into penguins, but I specifically have the memory of like going to blockbusters with Sweep and then seeing a copy of Surf's Up on DVD, and I was like, wow, heck yeah, penguins surfing, they're surfing the
Hell
penguins.
yeah! So there was an aspect to this that I guess was appealing to kids, like because you saw surfing penguins and they had like they had like tribal tattoos.
Yeah, that's not the aspect of the 2000s. We should talk about Mario. But
That's a very 2000s thing, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I specifically remember because I think there's something appealing to kids of like an animal. Yet you maybe know from like Antarctica or not the part of the world that it's not like Europe, America, whatever. Going, wow, they're surfing. They're doing this thing I can do right now.
Yeah, there was like also this trend of like animal does extreme sports.
Yeah. This was like the 2000s. So like extreme sports were very much the big thing. So like there was skating, there was skating, there was surfing, etc.
Then there are
etc.
mountain bikes and
Yeah,
like BMX and all those things where you can like hurt yourself.
yeah. This was like very much an era where like extreme sports really became a thing. Like they were like skating is just in the 90s and 80s, of course. But like it's when like it became very commodified and very mainstream. So you had like the X Games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I guess
That
I think the 90s were like the real start of like real commercialized extreme sports.
yeah,
But
like
like the 2000s were like you still were deep, knee deep in all that extreme sports stuff for a while. Also,
yeah,
Surf's Up was produced over like 4 years. So when they started production, like 2003 or something, extreme sports were even more popular, I'd say, at that point. Like
yeah. That's
towards the end of the 2000s, it was already getting less popular.
yeah. I agree. But yeah, there was this like big trend of like putting that in children's movies because a lot of like young people were getting into that. Because it provided like a space where it can be like both actually rebellious and like rebellious in a performative way. So it brought like a lot of people into it.
Yeah,
Which then got put into like animated movies and a lot of kids stuff. Which led to part of like a lot of the 2000s, like the very like 2000s images of cool, where like extreme sports, like new metal, like I don't know, sunglasses, etc.
yeah,
etc.
totally.
So that and like I remember my history with Happy Feet is more just I remember seeing on like DVD on a kid and being like, where this is even as a kid like where this is like a kids movie. This is not for adults like 11-year-old Alice here watching like Power Rangers on like Portuguese TV.
Yeah, that
Uh,
was the real shit.
yeah, that's the weird shit. But yeah, like I think like that. Like I haven't really thought about penguins, but I do remember like as a kid seeing like because like the 2000s had like a lot of like Antarctica stuff like Master of the Penguins and like a lot of stuff about like penguins, wildlife, stuff like that in Antarctica. So I remember seeing a
Yeah,
lot of those as a kid and hearing like a lot about penguins and stuff like that. Also because there was like a lot of like environmental stuff like around this, like saving Antarctica, etc. etc.
yeah, and that's like a thing with Happy Feet, right?
Yeah, yeah, with Happy Feet. Because if I remember the others of Happy Feet, if I remember well, was Josh Miller saw some penguin documentary and I was like became very interested with Antarctica. And after this, the status part were like some Australian guy that went to Antarctica, like a person there was like well for some reason talk Josh Miller in the bar. I was like, Josh Miller, if you ever make a movie about penguins, it must be in Antarctica. Which was a very good story. I like that. Thank you, one of the most guy from Antarctica.
I
It was.
always love when like random people say stuff to directors and then they just do it.
It's the best, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember these movies coming out, but I was like a bit older when they came out, so I think I was wait 16 when these came out, so I was like about to peak in my edgy phase. I was about to go full edgy. This was right before I got really into metal. So to me, these were like lower baby culture. This was like below me. I wouldn't even look at that.
Yeah, this is not real without media. The penguins are not dying, and
This is commercial mainstream, not like Metallica, not like Saint Anger.
yeah, the penguins are not going inside the prison to sing some bad songs.
Yeah, they're not gonna tell you about Saint Anger around his neck.
Yeah, they're
Um,
not.
we can't do this, Alice. We can't go on a 5 minutes Saint Anger trip right now
No, no, we're
during the
not.
podcast.
We're not. We're not.
I just felt it coming up in myself to like, oh no, I want to talk about Saint Anger. Let's not do this.
We'll talk about that
So
later. Let's
yeah,
go.
Happy Feet and Surfs Up. Right. So what I think was like topical for the time was of course the environmentalism in Happy Feet, and I looked it up before, and that a year before these two came out, Inconvenient Truth dropped, and that movie was like discourse when it came out in America. So I feel like one of the reasons why Happy Feet did like do worse in the like reception, especially on the like conservative side, was that they were already like being I guess attacked more for like environmentalist causes, and then Happy Feet also had an environmentalist message. So I guess they were kind of like pissed off at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Like
At
Sauce
like
Miller.
people at like this becoming like discourse again and again.
Yeah, like Josh Miller
So
talks in an interview. I found a couple interviews about like when making this movie, he could not think about climate change because of Antarctica, of course, and because of like he's from Australia. It's like looks at what's happening right now in Australia because of climate change. So
yeah,
it was
makes
always in his
sense.
mind.
Yeah, and I think it does not a bad job at it. And I think, yeah, it didn't get actually the rep that it kind of deserves because everybody just knows it as like the Penguin musical.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's very interesting because like I swear every time I talk to somebody that has actually watched the Happy Feet movies, like this and like the sequel, they always like, this is actually kind of good. I thought this was just the Dancing Penguin movie, and this is
Yeah,
actually kind of good.
I was in that camp until I watched it this month. Like I was so sure that it would just be a bit of dancing penguins and maybe like a moral, but it has like three different morals or something. It's like actually way more going on than you expect.
Yeah, I find that very interesting. Like Josh Miller, doing research, I watched like interviews with Josh Miller, and he has talked in the interviews of like he was like inspired by like Pinocchio and Dumbo, and like the way he summarizes a lot of his storytelling is like he's a very big fan of like this type of moral storytelling, not in a way of like a PSA, but like a story that goes to various like morals. So like with like Disney's Pinocchio, and like the story of Pinocchio, there's various morals Pinocchio goes to. In
Yeah,
like so a lot of Happy Feet is like various like connected stories that tell specific morals that conclude into like a final story, which is not unique or revolutionary, but it's very interesting how it's used in this movie.
yeah. I'm gonna talk about that later in the plot, but the way he does it is actually way interesting. Like how he like folds it all together. It's really neat.
Yeah, I think it's like Happy Feet can be summarized as just a very neat movie. It's a very neat, like interesting movie in a lot of things it does.
True. So I guess two more things that I guess go into the cultural and historical context. One yikes for each movie.
Yeah, it's equality. They got equality for yikes.
It's equilibrium. So yeah, the thing with Happy Feet, we found a bunch of articles and like academic papers that talk about this in length, and they're gonna be linked because those people actually explain it way better. The like depth of it, but there's basically a bunch going on with the way the main step dancer of the movie was like given low credit, and basically there's dynamics behind that go back to rotoscoping about like how black people and black performances get like erased through animation. And yeah, it's like a very fascinating topic. Like I hadn't thought about it before from that angle. And yeah, that's like a thing with Happy Feet.
Yeah, it's a thing specifically about like how black bodies are used for stories that are like I like Happy Feet, but Zaz Miller's a white Australian old guy. The story, besides couple characters we talk more because there's kind of more reacts to Happy Feet. The story is framed as white, so there's an issue that when like the when using like black bodies and black farmers for a story that's still at the end like framed as white.
Yeah, and also like the character is like credited to Elijah Woods, the performance.
Yeah, that's
But
also an issue that comes with like that's another issue that comes with, like a lot of we talk about this when we talk about the motion capture, but like the issue with a lot of these technologies can be used in Italy, but the issue is a lot of the performers are not. If it's not like this Sherlock man in the Hobbit doing a very funny dragon guy, it's like it's like this. It's not like this actually very talented performer. God, I'm sorry that I don't remember his full name. Like he's called like Glabo. He has a very talented performer. I've watched. There's Happy Feet DVD extras that show off how the tap dancing. The tap dancing in this movie is very good. So how is it done? And he would, from what I can find, he was a big part of the movie. And besides even he was a percussionist, not just the tap dancing. So like this is a very talented person doing very talented work, and he gets not credited. Uh, not
he
credited
did
that
get
much.
credits, just like low credits. Basically,
Yeah,
he
that's what I
he did
mean.
credited like all in the back end, and I guess he worked on more stuff that he was credited. He apparently, to what all I found, wasn't like upset about that fact specifically, but it's still like it's the ethical practice behind it is still questionable. That's like the real issue here, like because it could like become this is like a trend. This stuff of like how we look at performances that like maybe aren't the voice actor in this stuff.
Yeah, it's a very like problematic trend. That's been an issue since forever, even outside of animation, specifically like a lot of like live action stuff.
Yeah, the
There's us.
academic paper actually like mentions Fleischer comics from the like 30s that already did this with like rotoscoping black people.
Yeah. So yeah, that's very much like an issue and part of this. And we'll go a bit more into it when we talk about the motion capture. But it's very much like a actually issue that has to do with like the cultural of this animation tech, this technology in general, and how black performances and like non-black performers and like non-white performers are used for the performances, but they're not credited or not given the recognition they deserve.
Yeah.
Now we're gonna talk about the cannibalism.
Yeah, so like basically as a funny side plot on the island of Pengu, yeah, that's the name of the island. Um, there's just out of nowhere in like the last Earth, there's like a subplot of like a cannibalist tribe trying to eat the chicken, and they're penguins,
Yeah, it was first
and
the
they're like
animal.
they are like in I guess stereotypical like tribal clothing and like painting. They're talking some kind of fantasy language that yeah doesn't sound
It's
very respectful.
yeah, there's various aspects to unpack. Something culture has its own weird, has its own issues with like culture appropriation, issues of culture, like just how high is a colony of America, still is a colony of America. That's a whole thing. The movie but uses like legally distinct times, specific nations. It's not a
Yeah.
thing. And then also enter into it, cannibalism is not actually a thing for the most part. Like the Western like imperialist colonialist person like how like indigenous people did cannibalism. That's not real. There's academic papers on that. You can
Yeah,
read,
yeah.
read it up.
It basically goes back to the like Greek invention of like the concept of barbarism, where you would just like start othering a culture so you can then like go colonize them or conquer them.
It's propaganda. It shows up in a lot of like animation comedies, just any media in general. It's specifically in this era, specifically
Yeah.
like a lot like the extreme stuff. Like we already mentioned the title tattoos briefly. The
Yeah,
series
those
specifically,
basically are the same. Also, like play to the same thing of like appropriating this the whole thing.
it's stealing business culture, putting it as putting it as a commercial entity, and then still painting their indigenous people as evil cannibals, as a Zoka, as a sheep Zoka in your Penguin movie.
Well done, Sony Pictures, and
Well,
also well done. I think the 7 writers on this.
seven white, seven writers, two directors of this. One of the directors, one of the
7
fun,
writers, and none of them thought this was like maybe a bad idea.
fun fact: one of the directors of this was the director of Tarzan. There's a twin.
So yeah, that's definitely like that's what like makes because like the other one is like very complex, and this one is just something that we can think about 2 seconds and realize it's a bad idea.
Yeah, the other one is you have to actually like look up
Think about
academic
it.
papers, think about it for a second, think about the history of the medium,
Yeah,
and
the
then
other one is just something you obviously wouldn't do.
yeah, the other one is just like, what the fuck, dude? Can you stop?
And there is no mention of this in all the Christian reviews where they point out everything that could be offending. Like they mention the chicken dressing and drag as potentially offending, but they don't mention the cannibalism. We live in a society, people.
We live in a society of circles. Let's go.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get to our main segment. Let's talk about the cast.
Yeah, so the cast of Happy Feet. Happy Feet has a bunch of Australian actors, of course. We have Eliza Wood, Nicole Kidman, I think.
Yeah, actually, I think she's
Uh,
the mother.
Yeah, the matter. It's very much like a classic cast of like famous people from Australia.
And then there's Fat Joe.
But yeah, we have in the cast of this we have Eliza Wood. We have Eliza Wood, AJ Daly as the kid penguin, the kid protagonist. Eliza Wood as the protagonist, of course. We have Hugh Jackman, Nicole Kidman, Hugo Weaving, Fat Zoe, famous rapper.
Yeah,
New
I
York
listened to
rapper.
one of his tracks today just to like get into the zone.
Look, Happy Feet Zoe.
Want to know something really meta actually about Happy Feet and Fat Joe that I realized today?
Yeah.
His hit single was about him not wanting to dance, and he's in a movie where doesn't where he's in a culture where dancing is uncool. And I think he was actually cast because of that reason. Because
That's
it would be
interesting.
like a meta joke for him to like not like dancing. That's
Yeah.
wild, right?
Yeah. Well, that's weird. Why? Then we have. Then we have another yikes that I actually looked it up, and it gets even weirder, even more yikes. So we then have Robin Williams, who plays various characters. He plays the narrator. He plays a Gulu guy. He plays a Mexican penguin. And here's the thing: so that character is part of a group of Mexican like coded penguins, and the rest seem to be like Hispanic actors. But then you have Robin Williams as the main one. Very much
Yeah,
like
and
Mexican.
that's not all. He also plays a black coded character.
Oh yeah.
He also plays the Oracle guy.
Yeah, and he's just, and it's like
He does
very,
like a preacher Barry White thing.
it's very bad.
It's
It's
very
very
yikes. It's like what the hell.
uh, yeah, it's very much like my Catholic waters. Okay, I don't think any of those are Catholic. Robin Williams, Zos Miller. What are you thinking? But
Yeah, I think Hugo Weaving did a good job. I like as the villain guy.
yeah, like I was looking up interviews with Miller, like I said earlier, and like he talked about like he wanted to make the expressions and ways the characters talk very like not realistic, but he wanted to give an extra thing. So like when Hugo, so like was it who plays the dad again? The
I think you mean the one that's like Elvis.
Yeah, the Elvis dad.
That's Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, that's as Memphis was get it Elvis Memphis. Funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went like Miller specifically talked about like when Memphis. There's a scene when Memphis gets angry at Mumbles, the protagonist, and his voice is like very angry. But if you see the animation, it's like much more calmer. To give an idea of a parent who's maybe like yelling at their kid, but still not the most angry because they're still their kid, which I find interesting.
There's
And
like a dissonance there, I guess.
yeah, they Miller specifically talked about wanting to give those characters more depth by combining the animation, the acting, which I found very interesting. They Miller actually talked about like being together the animation with the actors, doing things, doing bits, etc. There's a lot of like very interesting use of combining the motion capture elements and also the dialogue and combining how they were acted, how they were done, and in the movie themselves.
Yeah. I guess this was like a pretty breakthrough year for CG then, when it came like to, because it also had the whole Oscar thing happening,
Yeah.
the whole reaction to it when it won an Oscar.
Well, we're going to that. We still have to talk
Yeah,
about
we're
that.
gonna be in the CG department when we talk about that.
Yeah, but yeah, I think how the acting works is very interesting. They give this like they. This is also going to the character design. They give this penguins different looks, so they look slightly different even though they're penguins. So like when they talk, you can notice just by their voice and how they look. Oh, that's that penguin. That's that penguin.
Yeah, they
Which
basically change around the proportions a bit for the different penguins.
yeah, it's very nice. I think overall, besides the act stuff, the acting is very good. All of
I
this
think
is
it's
of course.
also I think it's also very George Miller that he didn't design them like merchandisable.
Yeah.
Like the other ones have like tribal tattoos, and you can turn them into figurines.
Yeah,
And like the ones in Happy Feet, they don't look like something you can turn into a toy, really.
yeah, like I'll talk about this more and talk about the CZ, but there was a lot of emphasis of like not making this cartoony, but making it very like emotive, very like kind of realistic, but a character can like walk, and it seems like a walk, but that's what seems kind of outside of reality in a
Yeah,
way.
almost like hyper reality, especially in like a later scene we're
Yeah.
gonna can talk in the plot about.
But so yeah, let's talk about the cast for Zappa. We have Shia LaBeouf as the main guy, Seth Wizards. Zoe John Held, James Woods en Dyack Baydon. Very much messengers out of the gate. Shia LaBeouf is a scumbag. He is an abuser. He is an absolutely bad person of a human being. He fucking sucks. He fucking sucks.
Yeah, this like Surf's Up actually had like all the cards against it in this episode because like they just made a bunch of decisions that in hindsight make it look so bad.
Yeah, like this was when like Shia LaBeouf was still a kid actor, so like no
He was
one knew
21
him.
actually at the point at this point.
Okay, but yeah, this was still before people knew his thing.
Yeah, how shitty he is.
So like, listen, you can look. I specifically recommend look at it. No, if you want to look at that, but bias content management of abuse, manipulation, actual gaslighting, etc., etc. Needless to say, he is a scumbag. He is incredibly bad as a human being, and as an actor. How did you like the main penguin? Uh,
He is good at playing Bam Margera
yeah.
because he's a 20-year-old guy, so he can get into the mindset. But like that's
Yeah.
not hard to do when you're a 20-year-old guy.
Yeah, like the thing is, it's very much like the acting for what goes more. The specifically the buffs acting is like very much like just playing. A lot of this is just playing like sofa stereotypes. So the buffs character is like playing Bam Margera from Jackass. Um, Self Boyce's character is like playing the cool like sports mentor guy, the former champion that went away. So it's
Yeah, I think they're like attempting to like get a naturalistic like vibe going. They also like acted out these they recorded the lines together for the
yeah.
actors apparently.
Yeah, they
Um,
talked about it in the. I found the thing about how this was produced and made by the team itself, and they were very much trying to be naturalistic, and sounding like a real like sports documentary and a real thing.
yeah, and the thing is, it's kind of dissonant because like you have these over cartoony characters and all this like toilet humor and all this shit and like and then you have like these like real surfers in the middle like giving interviews and stuff and like it's trying to be like a family movie but also like a fake surfer documentary and it just feels kind of jarring.
Yeah, and also the how this goes into the acting. Apparently, how this was made, how the dialogue, a lot of the dialogue was like made up on the spot. It was bits. It was that by like making up bits on the time, letting actors make up their own naturalistic bits,
Yeah, a
or
lot of
like
improvising I guess.
improvising. With it goes even weirder because as part of this we can notice some of the improvising, but then there's just parts where it feels very much like a kids movie or like a weather or surf movie, combined like the aspect with like going to the acting itself. Zoe Deschanel just plays the main girl, who is nothing.
Yes.
She's just a penguin girl,
Yeah,
nothing
she's
more.
just there to be the love interest
And
because it's
also,
a sports movie.
the best cat was also played by not the scumbag, James Wood, noted right wing asshole, plays the like the talent scout character, who's like very much like the sports like like the say the grifty talent man as a sports guy.
Yeah, I think a
Who
friend of us was reminded of that boxer promoter.
yeah Don, was it Don something? And
Sorry, we're
he
not American. We don't know his name. It's okay.
we are not Americans. What the
We are
fuck?
not American.
Yeah,
It's
but
like the Hulk
yeah,
Hogan song, but like the reverse.
that's for when he play evil heels in WWE. We are the not. We are the heels of the evil and not Americans.
The
But
unreal American.
yeah, yeah, but yeah, like he's very much like I think he's probably the best cat in the movie because it's at least doing something. It's just James Woods doing Hades again, but it works basically. At the,
I think the funny buff guy who polishes his statues. That's the real. That's a real singer.
Ja, dat zie ik. Die ja, samen. Die Karbeider.
Dirk
Die.
Spader.
Yeah, the Karbeider. That's that guy. Yeah, that's the actor. He does a good job. As the penguin guy.
Yeah,
And then
he's kind of funny at being a bad guy, actually. Now that I think about it, and there's a stoner chicken, I guess.
yeah, I think that is. I think
Yeah,
I
I don't remember everybody from the cast. Like, I just didn't. I wasn't impressed enough. I just thought
yeah,
Bridges was okay because like Bridges always does like a pretty okay job.
yeah. Boys is very much playing like it's the sports like guy. It's a sports school type thing, but also it's playing the dude again in a way. Or just
In a
playing
way,
like
but like he basically gives the role a certain like amount of vulnerability that it
yeah,
almost doesn't deserve.
yeah, like it gives him like I think it's a part of like I think it's probably one of the things where like the improvised way of the movie kind of works. Sometimes well it's that because of that Jeff Bridges can give this type of like retired old guy that lost Bible to the guy Big Z, and it works in making that character a bit more nuanced in what stuff's up is. And then last thing to mention actually, then the bunch of surfers play themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not the surf head. I don't
I
know
looked
this
him up
people.
and like I don't know. They, they don't even have that haircut anymore. I don't know.
And
It's not the best references even if they play themselves. Like it's not like they're still just penguins.
yeah, that's funny penguins, but yeah,
So the plot. How did you enjoy the plot of Happy Feet?
I think the plot of Happy Feet was interesting because, like I was talking earlier, it's very like Pinocchio, like sides, monotone ways, and like it's a bunch of like beats and different episodic stories even combined into an overall thing. And I found as a plot, it was overall very fast, very much like using animation to show what was going on, and I really like it a lot because a scene can happen like there can be like a 1 minute or 2 minute scene in the movie that is just 1 or 2 minutes, but then goes it's surprisingly nuanced in how that scene or that part of the plot like makes those characters nuanced and progresses, and it's not forgotten about.
Yeah, yeah, it all ties together really well.
Yeah, I really like the plot actually. I've seen a lot of animated movies. I'm an animation head. I really think this is a very much like good way of combining animation, plot, everything. I think the plot is very interesting. How it seems like very much traditional. Or no, this character has a talent, but it's repressed by society, and then it still is that, but then it goes around to tell stories about that and episodes about that, and then it reaches this very good climax. As we have to mention, the music, we're gonna talk about the music, but even if the music's somewhat generic in what they pick, not generic, but like traditional pop and stuff, they use it very well for the plot, for the big plot elements, and the finale is genuinely explosive in a good way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a good escalation to it all.
Yeah,
Um,
it knows how to escalate, when to be soft, and when to go boom.
yeah, it's
And
true. I enjoyed it. I thought also that it like moved really fast for like the kind of story it was telling.
yeah,
That the pacing was really good, but I guess that's to be expected for the guy who would like go on to direct Mad Max Fury Road. That
yeah,
like the pacing and like the setup and payoff are like really good in this movie.
yeah. The middle's work normally is that it's very like fast into listen, even when it's longer. So it's very much like that's very much he's doing his thing and he knows how to do it. In specific, putting it in the format of a kids movie.
Yeah. I also thought the structure is like kind of interesting in how it builds because like it almost feels like there's like a almost break at the end where stuff moves really fast and then you get the climax and then you get the reaction to the climax and that is like that's a very intense last part. Before that, you have more of that, like you said, Pinocchio episodic structure, or like these characters meet and they have these interactions, and it's like more of a traditional story. And then but once he gets like captured and put into the zoo, it basically becomes this like almost closed up story, like a short movie,
Yeah.
where he basically saves the world.
It's interesting because there's an escalation and a switching of tones that I find fascinating in those what
Yeah,
it needs.
that's why I
It
mentioned hyper reality, because like when he switches to when he gets put in the zoo, the humans are like real humans, and that works like on two levels. First off, they didn't have to animate like CG humans, and that's like a good idea in 2007 maybe.
yeah.
Um, but also they basically show that this is our world. Like they're talking about our reality. They're not talking about some fantasy Earth.
Yeah, and I think the
Like these are
plot.
real penguins, basically, is what they're saying.
Yeah, so I find it fascinating because you have more plots that are still realistic, the episodic stuff, but it goes more into absurd directions. So when they go into the human part, is very interesting, and
Yeah,
especially
it's
if you.
very untraditional move for like a animation for like a Hollywood animation movie to make, like that style of movie. I mean,
Yeah, I think it's very much interesting specifically about how it uses the animation in that segment, which I think is genuinely very interesting. It also uses live action actors, which is amazing. Same
yeah,
well.
like what you can do in animation by just taking away the animation for a moment. Like it's basically a Anno move. What he's doing.
Yeah, this is the end of Happy Feet. But
This is end of Happy Feet.
yeah, it kind of is. But yeah, let's go. Yeah, I think it's very much what I like. I think how the characters are structured, the story structure is very good. I think it knows how to tell humor jokes, parts. I guess it's not plot, but one of my favorite parts is there's like a dance segment. Like there's a segment where like it's basically the coming of age penguin ceremony, and the mom was the protagonist basically fails at that, and then it cuts out to him on like an igloo, not an igloo, but like a piece of ice. I mean, alone, and it doesn't show how he got hit there or anything. It
Yeah,
just shows the sadness of him failing and just him there alone. And that's genius. That's fantastic. That's what I love about animation. And even that, you don't need to show him getting there. It's just get sad, get lost, get now alone in this little sad. Very
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah. It makes so much sense. It immediately your brain immediately knows what happened in between.
It's a movie that knows how to like. I think this is like very overrated as like writing things, but that's an aside. But like for this movie knows how to sell, to show and not tell a lot of times.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
which is
think.
funny because like Surf's Up is overall the better reviewed and rated movie.
Yeah, but I guess do you have anything more about Happy Feet?
No, I think we can go to the
Yeah,
plot
Surf's Up.
of Surf's Up.
Surf's Up story is very. I think it is one of the more interesting parts of the movie because it's trying to make fun of documentary non-fiction and also sports narrative in a way. So like it
Yeah,
does have like the thing of like this the documentary beats, the sports beats. If you've seen a documentary, if you've seen like a sports documentary or just a sports fictional movie, you know the beats and the beats are on purpose there.
yeah,
It's just a thing like the beats are not like the plot, like the beats. There's beat. It works on that way, but it doesn't work for the cats or anything.
yeah. It also like they're just doing still the traditional sports movie. They're just self-aware that they're doing it in a documentary format, right?
Yeah, this is
But
a
like that's one joke. Like,
like
you can't make that the entire joke that they're like filming penguins that are surfing and they're document. It's a real documentary.
yeah, like this is very much the era. Like the thousands very much the era when people start doing the whole like, oh, but I'm self-aware. It's good actually.
Some of the people reviewing this really talked about it like, wow, this is so innovative.
It's
This
like
is so mind blowing. They're doing a fake documentary, and the penguins surf, bro.
like not to be mean, but like it just reminds me a bit of Sip and Dale also because it's aware that it's doing a thing. It's doing it. It's aware. It's just aware. It's
Yeah,
like
just being aware does nothing. Like it
like
just breaks you. It just makes you aware that you're watching a movie. That's everything that it does.
I like various medias that are self-aware, but like you have to actually do things with the self-awareness. This is
Y-
just it's doing the format of a sports movie. The beats are there. There's no emotionality. When the protagonist, when the penguin, when Shia LaBeouf penguin gets like rescued by Big C, there's emotional elements there. But I think that's most Jeff Bezos doing his thing. Because
Yeah,
Jeff
Jeff
Bezos is
Bridges
very
is literally the closest this comes to like having any kind of emotional impact.
because Jeff Bezos as an actor is very good at like doing that type of seal dude character who still has vulnerability. Besides him, the dude, you can look at something like I don't know, Guardians of the Galaxy and still see some emotionality on his performance. It's like you there needs to be something, and like I don't want to like this movie is made by talented people. Like I just don't want to go Happy Feet is the movie made by an auteur, Surf's Up is not because it's made by people who they like. One of the directors was the director on Frozen. It's the like from all my did I think Tarzan is a good Disney movie also. I think it has talented people. It's just like I can see where the business is going. It's just the plot does nothing with that. Compared to like even like you can see like to give an example like the plot of Frozen. It's like a very traditional fairy tale with some subversions, but it's still doing those beats very well. It knows how to do those beats, support those beats, and do a good ending with it in the Disney way that has its issues, but it's still something. But this does not feel anything for me personally.
Yeah, yeah, fully agree. It's a formulaic sports movie, and it has all the tropes of it. It basically has wax on, wax off. Um, like it's not actively malicious, but extremely juvenile at part. It really has that jackass and Bam Margera energy at parts, and I
Yeah.
like that's the part of like 2000s I want to forget the hardest.
Yeah, I know people who like Zackass, and the Zackass people seem fine, but also I don't want the clones of Zackass. That's the thing. I don't want the million doucheballs who think getting punched in the testicles is funny.
Yeah, I don't need to like I don't need to listen to like the Bloodhound Gang too. It's all
Yeah,
right. We can leave this behind.
listen, like it's so like it. There's like that's the thing. This movie, it kind of it wants to be satire. It wants to be emotional at times, but it has just a meanness to it that I hate. Like there's a part where they get filled with poop. That's just oh poop. There's like a
A
possible
P-
masturbation joke. That's funny because masturbation. You see,
yeah,
it's just
the villain is such a like Chad that they have to give him a weird fetish to like basically make him look bad. They have to
yeah.
invent a new fetish.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole
Like
thing. I guess watch the movie. Don't pay for it though, but watch it for the weird penguin pees on another penguin, and watch it for the weird fetish.
yeah, like that's the thing. It's just
Just
this
fast forward when the cannibals show up.
like that's the thing. This movie is very much mean in a specific way and just kind of goes to nothing. Like it's not funny enough for the satire to work. It's not emotional enough for the emotionality to work. It's not even mean enough to work. It's like maybe if it was mean enough, maybe if it
It's
was
kind of middling because like at the end, like at the very end, it does go into this like yeah, surfing is just kind of dope.
yeah.
Like we're gonna
It's like
talk about this in the teams, but that's like one of the main teams. It's just oh, surfing rules.
yes, I guess there's what I want cinema. I want the kino. Give me something, some
Yeah,
substance.
give me something more than waves to look at.
Yeah,
Like I
like
like them, but that's really this movie is waves, but it's only waves.
yeah, I need more than the waves. But like yeah, I
Like
think
I
it's
like
like
Point Break, so it's not like I'm not like I don't like surfing movies.
yeah, it just needs something. This is very much just a thing that exists honestly in this plot, which I guess also brings us to the themes.
Yes, the themes of Happy Feet are societal norms, environmentalism, communication, and
Yeah,
those are basically used in so many cool ways that it's kind of hard to even summarize. Because it all comes together at the end to basically save the world. Like all these things have to work together. Basically, society has to like work together to communicate with each other to solve the environmental crisis. So all these teams flow together at the end. It's kind
yeah,
of very good.
yeah. Like and there's also some stuff about realism with state power actually, which is fascinating. It's very much like I said, there's very much like it's very much like the Pinocchio way, but in an interesting way because Pinocchio just has a bunch of separate models, but this goes beat by beat by combining those models per episode or per story it has. So it goes so it goes like the control of society, realism, tolerating like certain ways of expression, like state power. Then you go into the spirituality and the grifting aspects of that. You go into like pain, suffering, not being accepted in your community, and like I mentioned this before, but going back to that scene I was talking about where the Mambos gets rejected by not doing the coming of age ritual good, it very much communicates the themes well because like I said, like it's for the plot it works very good, but it's just like it uses its themes and like it just communicates an emotionality of those themes. Like when he gets rejected, you just see him alone in one place from the other penguins. Or like there's a very good dance scene near the end, where, like all the penguins like reject the conformity of like the penguin religion and just dance together, and that's genuinely explosive because it's symbolizing this sense of union, the sense of communion, the sense of like fighting
There,
against established norms.
you could say they commit a dance revolution.
Like, well, like I'm saying, I mean, like again, like the thing is, this is not something of like, oh, this is a movie made by an auteur, so it's cool. No, it's not. It's just, I am just happy that this is a thing, that this has a movie, that this has themes, which like everything has themes, but like I'm just happy how Happy Feet was just, like, it's not unique. What I think I like about this movie is that it's not saying, oh, this is an animated movie that this thing's for the first time. No, George Miro is somebody that understands animation, that understands the influences of animation, and understands that animation always, specifically since animation, always brings about this, and just communicates, not just as George Miro, the writers, the actors, they all communicate this joy in the movie, which is wonderful, genuinely. It's wonderful to talk about this movie.
Yeah, I think it deserves this fucking Oscar.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Oscar before, but just going to the teams, I think it does a lot of well with the teams. Like, of course, there's issues, of course, with what the teams say, and there's stuff with motion caps, when, like, the Mexican Penguins. Yeah, the whole thing about respecting the influences goes a bit off sometimes when it's you have the Mexican stereotype penguins play
Yeah,
with the leader played by a white.
it's a real big Benini moment.
Yeah, like I think
Like
there's
just
this.
very well-meaning George Miller not thinking. Like brain just off.
Yeah, like I think there's a lot of issues with that, but when it hits, like specifically with with scenes with like the scenes with the humans, specifically. God, I went more quicker than them. I forgot to mention this, but I'll mention this quicker. So Steve Orlean, owing the Australian wildlife person, was cast for Happy Feet. He died while filming the movie for his show, so his scene was cut. You can find it on YouTube as a DVD extra. He's there as a whale talking with the penguin. Just wanted to mention that because I forgot about it Saturday. It's
Oh, that would
good
have
scene.
tied it more, even more into Pinocchio, I guess, having a whale.
Yeah, it's a very good scene. I recommend it. But yeah, going back to what I was saying, my favorite segment is the human segment because it says I like because all of the movie they've been talking humans as aliens, which I think is fascinating, and then they go into this Antarctica lost base that seems like the thing. It seems like the base from the thing, which is amazing. Also,
Yeah, it
uh,
feels like they're discovering an alien structure.
and like and then they get captured, and then there's this magnificent thing about existence and seeing creatures that are above you and beneath you. And it's just fascinating, honestly, because it's this whole thing like this penguin seeing humans for the first time. Specifically, goes into like the action segments we talked about, and that ties a lot to the environmental themes of this, about pollution, about that. Like that camp literally looked like a mine, destroyed everything. Like the humans. A thing I like about this is so honest because the movies literally go it's maybe a bit too hopeful, but I still like it a lot because it's so honest of like, oh yeah, the humans see the penguins and they communicate, and then global climate change is solved. They,
Yeah, it's very almost like Star Trek's level of hopeful. Like basically, okay, yeah, we're gonna figure shit out. Some shit is just gonna be solved. Yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of neat actually, like because Mad Max and all that stuff is all about like this like wasteland concept. To see like a Miller movie that's kind of the opposite. People kind of
yeah,
solving issues.
yeah, and even just going beyond like looking at the movie by this director's like, I like this optimism. Of course, climate change is not going to be solved this way, but like I don't know. This is still like perceived in like a Western optimism made by an Australian white guy. But like, I just like this type of storytelling. If like, oh, the penguins downstreamed all the emotions they had, so the humans saw that, the squeezes that they perceive as aliens saw that, and the world changed for better. It's wonderful, like metaphoric communication of themes, of ideas.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. Makes me happy, so anyway. I love the cinema, turns out. Love a movie, love an animated movie, love animation.
So the teams of Surfs Up are surfing rules, dude,
Yes, I'm suffering.
and
But
surrogate father. You could squeeze in some found family thing. Like you could make an argument that it is about found family.
maybe it's something about like how other worlds and relations of sports people. Um, they also have a sense. Never give up even when you lose. Never give up when you lose.
I
Something,
guess
something.
there's also something about like friendship is more important than winning, and that's not the worst idea.
Yeah, like I said before, there's a ton of people working on this. Like I don't think Frozen's a masterpiece of themes, but also it has some interesting ideas, how it uses fairy tales, etc., etc. I think a lot of these people worked on things that are more thematic depth. Even something like Tarzan has a somewhat decent theme of like love. This is kind of just like very much subsumed by the aesthetics of 2000s, like things that are just like it's just very much like wow surfing, like the cool robot meme, but it's like instead of like people missing the point, it's like just people going surfing rules. It's like surfs up points to the surfing board, people points to surfing board,
Yeah,
surfing
everybody's
rules.
happy. Sometimes a big wave, it's just a big wave.
Yeah, sometimes the big wave is big. It's a big wave.
It's a pretty wave. Yeah, so I think we don't have to talk much about teams here.
Yeah.
I think we can just go right to cultural relevance.
Yeah.
Back to
Uh,
happy feet, I guess.
uh,
Climate change is still happening, you know.
yeah. I think, yeah, climate change is still happening. I've seen some articles on this. I've seen some articles that people, I think people are slowly more like this is not some indie obscure movie, but still, like, I think people have been watching all this and going, "Huh, this movie is actually interesting," because like climate change in like 2000s animation was still very like PSA heavy and stuff like that. And I also kind of ignored after like the 90s like environmental message movies, stuff like Fungory, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think this was really the start. This and like Inconvenient Truth was like the start of the next wave of like mainstream environmentalist works.
So yeah, I think there's an element of that. I think also a lot of people remember this because it was like a big hit. So there's like a nostalgia for it. Because a lot of people, because you like look at the DVD cover, and it's like Happy Penguin dancing. It's
Yeah, they marketed the baby a lot here, the baby penguin, even though like he's just a baby for like the first maybe 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, quick thing. I just wanted to mention the way the movie uses dancing and so I mentioned this on TV, but the way the movie uses dancing and like rhythm and like the tap dancing to symbolize metaphors are also very good, and it's very much part of the talent of the movie had. Was not just Miller.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah. It's very expressive dancing most of the time. Like it connects to what's trying to be conveyed.
yeah, I think it's very good and I like it a lot.
Uh,
But yeah, going back, I just want to mention. I think there's a big nostalgia for Happy Feet.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. And like I guess penguins aren't as big anymore as when like Madagascar came out, and then the Madagascar penguins got their own show.
uh,
And I think that
uh,
was the show was coming out around the time that this
I've
movie
watched some of
came
the
out.
show. It's pretty good.
It's okay.
Yeah, yeah, but
But
yeah,
yeah, that's very interesting. Like the big penguin wave is over, but like people probably are gonna get nostalgic for the penguin movies at some point.
yeah. Also, this I need to talk probably now about the backlash this got. So this sort of backstory. This was one of the biggest motion capture movies. Alongside the animation people making this was inspired by like Lord of the Rings and the stuff that was happening. So this was one of the big first animated movies with motion capture in it, and this got it's very much important animation history for that. And then, so this movie got a bunch of awards, including an Oscar. It's the only non-Ghibli, non-Pixar movie, non-Disney to win an Oscar, and it got backlash.
There
And I'm
was
talking,
discourse.
yeah, there was some animation heads were angry. So most importantly, there was backlash when this got an Oscar because a lot of people did not see motion capture as like a form of animation.
Yeah,
We don't need to go into technical details. It is animation. This is the same thing as like this is the same exact thing as like the backlash to CGI where like there's legit critiques on how CGI used labor. There's like legit critiques on how motion capture, like we mentioned before, uses like non-white performers, how it uses labor as well. But that's a lot of this is literally going into semantic discussions and what animation. It goes into like a lot of old head behavior.
yeah, and like so much of this discourse is like from people that have never like worked with motion capturing.
It's
Like so, it's not like there's like people who did the same job like arguing with each other. It's a bunch of people who have like a very strict expectation of what animation
in
is,
particular I'm go
and they're like offended that this counts
yeah,
as
in particular
animation.
like in particular it's like pretty much the old part. This is like 2007, so like the animation was already not being to the going more into the special effects work part of the stuff, so stop motion, CGI, etc., etc. So Zeddy Beck, as anyone who like animation academic, wrote an article on Katubo, which is like let's just say a problematic like animation website from 2007, and like the article is just him quoting Zane Diatek, which is a genuinely important like American animator that went to work on like Czechoslovakian animation, and genuinely an interesting figure who was 80 years old at the time. And it's him using Zane Diatek's critiques of animation so he can whine about Happy Feet not being authentic animation, unlike Shrek 3, which is literally name dropped.
Yeah, B movie and Shrek 3 are mentioned as good
Yeah.
examples. So yeah, I guess that's just a funny thing to
It's
know
just
to
like,
have.
it's part of like this kind of
Um,
like backlash to any type of this. Like I said, there's nuance, there's good critiques of this, but also there's just a bunch of old heads being old heads, whining about authentic animation and wishing at the time as well everything was 2D.
which is funny because, like, from the cultural relevance, if you look nowadays, I think nobody thinks about this anymore.
It has mostly died now. The discourse mostly has remained on like CGI at this point. Um,
Yeah,
I think motion capture has become more accepted in animation than CGI because it's not that common actually. Like it,
yeah, and like it doesn't get talked about in the press as much anymore, so like people don't even notice it's in
yeah,
there.
because it requires like a certain way of anime, a certain way of like specific work, specific like that.
Yeah. What's the cultural relevance nowadays of
Ah,
Surf's Up?
people, it's 2000s nostalgia. It's that. It's 2000 nostalgia. People remember it because it has the penguin surfing.
Yeah, I think for me it's like the soundtrack is probably the only thing that like people could be really nostalgic for. But I imagine some people are nostalgic for the movie itself, I guess.
I was.
But
That's why we watched it and realized that it's pretty bad.
but I guess nostalgia basically counts as barely any relevance because like everybody's nostalgic for like things that were in their past, like in their childhood.
This had a sequel. Do we count that as relevant, even though it was by WWE? It's like a quick cousin. It has like both this McMahon.
I mean, I can't even call that like it's not even like nostalgia baiting. It's just weird.
It
Like WWE saw Surf's Up and was like, I'm Vince McMahon. I gotta work with these men
I have to
or
make
something with these
I have to
penguins.
make like not to go into the distraction, but Surf's Up 2 literally has Vince McMahon as a buff author. It's amazing. It it's good.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, the relevance is mostly nostalgic in nature. There's no like top. There's nothing at this
I
that like
guess
isn't
I
extremely
guess it's some nostalgia.
contemporary.
Let's talk
Like it
about
was.
I guess it's time to talk about the movie how it was received in surfing circles.
I guess, yeah, because like apparently some people think this is one of the better surf movies, but then again, most of our sources are fucking reviews from like
And us,
magazines, and you know these people, they're just doing their jobs and they have to write about a fucking
also
penguin
one of them
movie.
is supposed to be a white wing grifter, so
Yeah, like I don't know, like there's plenty of weirdness going on in the surf culture. I'm not in the surf
you're
culture,
not
so
a
I don't
surfer
know,
either.
but it
Surf
sure
fan.
seems weird. There was like stuff about like people getting canceled in the surf culture.
Wow.
So I guess it's the same like in any
Yeah.
subculture. People like whine a lot about not about people being
Yeah.
angry at
But
them.
yeah, I think like besides the weird like surfing is part of this. Which I guess it seems like if you combine the I guess if you compare this with tattoo surfing movies, this is better than most surfing movies. That's not saying a lot.
Yeah, it like I think I think we can't actually talk about this because neither of us even
Yeah.
tries to surf.
Yeah.
Like I know I think I was on a surfboard, like one of those small ones that you have as a kid, but that you only can put your like your upper
Yeah,
body
like
on.
I don't.
And then I surfed with that, but not really
Like I don't
surfing.
have like a lot of like experience with surfing, so I cannot say a lot. But what I think either way, Happy Feet is the most relevant of these movies. It, if
Yeah, yeah,
nothing, if
definitely. Like
go ahead.
I think we can just leave it by that. Like the one of these had like a topic that's still culturally relevant, and the other
Yeah,
one
that's
just doesn't.
what's
Or like surfing has lost like popularity since
yeah.
then.
Uh,
Cinematography for
but this can be
shorts.
quick. I think the cinematography. I think this is very good. Like what I'm trying to say. This is not just Zaz Miller being this unique outward. There's had a lot of talented people. The cinematography in Surf's Up is very not Surf's Up in Happy Feet is very good in how it combines like actual cinematography of real actors and the motion capture with like animation. So like those scenes where the penguin's being chased by a shark and the camera lens, the animation camera lens, is following him, and it's genuinely very unique and interesting. Not unique, but like very clever use of the animation.
Yeah, I basically have it written here that it does things that would be impossible to do with a real
Yeah.
camera. Basically, it uses the format of animation to basically go beyond what physical
Yeah, I
cinematography could
was
even do.
I've actually heard recently discussed about should animation even try a camera because animation already has a hidden camera and it's just not just limiting animation by trying to make an animated camera like a movie, but I think this tries to make like a movie and then makes it even more unique, even more like an animator.
Yeah, it basically has both. It has both like traditional camera work techniques and stuff that was
Yeah,
never done like in a
I
real
think it's
with a
cool.
real camera.
It's cool. Is that cool? Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Surf's
generally
Up
cool.
tries to.
Um,
Surf's Up is interesting because they talked about in the whistles I found they talked a lot about trying to make it like a weird documentary. So like the animation is shaped like a weird camera, like for the characters, like it's a documentary camera.
uh, they basically what they made they build a camera with like infrared, and then and that's the bit that most people probably didn't get. They motion captured the movement of the camera and put it into the
Yeah.
CGI. So what I'm saying is this movie also has motion capture, you fucking assholes that said, oh, no, this is a real animated movie. Like this also had motion capture, it's just used in a very different way. It's motion capturing the movement of a
Yeah.
camera. But there's a person like moving the camera
Yeah.
for them. So it's the same thing.
Yeah. North Boy Sludo.
Yeah, I got like in my really
But
pissed
yeah,
off voice for a
I
second.
think there's not a lot to say. I think how the Surf's Up used the camera is one of the more neater elements because it's anyway twice.
I think it's the opposite of Happy Feet, because while Happy Feet does things that are impossible to do and like frees itself from the limitations, Surfs Up limits itself and tries to emulate real camera
Yeah, it
movement.
was. I'm not the most against the context because it is, after all, just like repetitive documentaries, but that's what's limiting on what it can show often. Besides a Kappa scene, which is interesting because
Yeah,
they talking like the document I found about like wanting to make animation that's also very fun for an animator to draw or use. So the camera contributes to that. I don't think it's the word.
I'm glad somebody
Yeah, I'm
had
glad
fun.
people had fun. Like, have fun, but boy.
Yeah, generally, actually, like some of the making of this movie sounds more fun than
Yeah,
watching the
I hope they at
movie.
least had a fun time. Like, I think it's. I think I get. I think for what it's doing, like it's limiting the animation, but that's. I think it's fine. It's fine.
Uh, it basically it reaches its goal of simulating the feeling of like watching a sports documentary where somebody has a
Yeah,
handheld
yeah,
camera.
yeah that's all. I think they're both very
Yeah.
neat ways of using animation.
The music. Let's shortly talk about the
Okay.
music because both of these have like a lot
Yeah.
of
So,
music.
like I said, the soundtrack in Happy Feet is very interesting because this movie is kind of a musical. It's a Zooks Box musical, so it uses like a lot of popular tracks along with like Glad was like talented like percussion work, like tap dancing work, to combine the themes of music, tap dancing, and like they got like I forgot the name, but they got like a very talented composer for it as well. And I think the movie does it. I think Happy Feet does a lot of interesting ways in the music because
I think the music works perfectly inside the
yeah,
movie.
like maybe in another animated movie this would be a bit generic, a bit generic, but it's used thematically well, along with like the percussion work, the tap dancing. The so it
Yeah,
feels like I mentioned like the last scene. It's just very explosive in how the music is used in a way I love because the penguins are just running along with the song. So it doesn't matter if it's a generic song or not. It works.
yeah, and you have like the combat element there with like the monk singing, like battling against the pop music,
Yeah,
basically. So that's very cool. I feel like narratively and like inside these musical numbers, these numbers works great, but like it's not the kind of soundtrack I would ever listen to outside
I
of
would
the movie.
say the composer like I think Glad the Temp Dancer also happened this they they worked on getting a diverse set of music, so it has like some hip hop, some pop. A fun thing is for some reason they don't use the full song, but they sample a part from Flashmaster. I think it's the group's name. You know who I mentioned when the white the one.
Yeah. They
No, but that
mention it. I
mentioned
think. Yeah,
there's a
they
penguin that
reference
just
it.
says. Sometimes I think what's keeping me from going under, which is a line from Grandmaster Flash. Uh,
Right,
the truth
right.
of the masses? Yeah, I think it's a masses. It's very interesting actually because they don't use the full song. They just use a penguin that says that line and combine it with that music, and it's actually kind of great.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's like a lot of like short musical references that get like switched up
It's
by the
neat.
next track.
Stuff's up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Surfs Up is if you're like into pop punk and alt rock from that era. I guess this is it. Like reggae and maybe a bit
This.
like the whitest
Yeah,
reggae you can find.
311. Good old 311. Always had to.
311 is on this.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact names, but go look it up. There's like Green Day covers on there
this
and
may seem
all.
like an insult, it's not, but this feels like very much like to be clear, I like emo music, I like pop punk, I like punk, I like pop, I like punk. I like this sound, and this very much feels like something that would be like on one of those. It would be like one of those like pop punk like emo Bible sites of like Surfs Up with like an article like titled Surfs Up, the hidden pop punk soundtrack of the year of the 2000s or something. It's like
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
not an
yeah.
insult. It just feels very much for that aesthetic. It's like that aesthetic of like 2000s like pop punk, that sound, that emotion. It's very much part of like maybe the nostalgic appeal of this.
Yeah, it's very much. It's like almost past its era because I imagine that they like licensed the tracks a bit before the movie actually came
Yeah.
out. Like the pop punk star was already falling by 2007. Like it was over its
Yeah, yeah.
zenith. Like Green Day wasn't in the charts anymore. Avril Lavigne was like less pop punkish than
Yeah, even Green
before.
Day moved from pop
Uh,
punk to doing their own bad thing.
yeah, a lot of bands at this time either emo became more of the
Yeah.
thing, and that's very interesting. This is basically like the last grasp of that scene. There's like stuff from like the 90s on there, like acts that were popular in the 90s but not after that.
Yeah.
So it's already almost past its time, but that makes it all even more nostalgic in a way.
Yeah. So, so yeah, I think Happy Feet does its soundtrack very thematically. I think there's in stuff up it also uses its soundtrack to set the mood, but the mood is like very like heck yeah, dudes, stuff's up, something. But yeah, I think
Yeah, it's very
yeah, we
high
have
energy.
energy. I think we have said a lot. Anything else?
Um, let's very shortly do effects and CG
Oh
before we
yeah,
wrap up. Or we have to do our lottery
yeah.
too.
That's the lottery.
Okay.
Effect is NCG. Yeah.
Um,
Like this, like I think we mentioned this before. I think with Happy Feet there was like very much the feel of like the motion capture is a very defining thing of this. It's very much the defining thing because it's what led to the discourse. It's this is one of the biggest animation movies to use motion capture, one of the biggest movies to use motion capture. It was taken for the from Lord of the Rings. I think it uses the motion capture very interesting. I think the CGI looks dated, but I think making it realistic, but also making it cartoony enough to create the movement makes it really good when it's moving.
yeah, the animations themselves haven't aged too badly.
Yeah, I think.
Like it's not that it's bad mocap. It's more like that. I guess the combination of like the Antarctic with the animals feels almost like a bit sterile
Yeah, so I guess
nowadays.
it's
Because like we have more complex particle effects and like shading and all that
yeah, but I think
nowadays.
what makes the CGI work for me is the even now I haven't seen a lot of CGI as expressive. Like again, there's a scene where the penguin gets searched by a shark, where it's then really very expressive, where it's just so much movement going around, even those facial animations. It's very like,
Yeah, yeah, that is very like the kinetic energy. Like that wasn't motion captured. That
yeah,
was like that had to be like hand animated and all that shit. So like it only reinforces that this movie is like animation. It has all kinds of
yeah,
animation,
yeah,
different
and
techniques.
they contacted Animalogic, which is Australian animation studio. This is like one of the biggest positive in Australian animation, and for a team of only like 65 people, they do a very good job of this. There's like a lot of very good animations. The animation always feels very much there. The movement feels well. It's dated, but I think it does a good job. Did I say this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it sums up.
So surfs up. Uh, I guess I didn't have anything to Happy Feet actually. Like I guess the water and the landscapes are
Yeah, the
kind of
water is very
classic.
interesting. The ice in certain parts is very interesting, specifically when they go to like the last Antarctic base. They do a lot of good effects to the weather there.
Yeah, and like the ice
Yeah.
splitting and all that stuff. That's also
Stuff's
cool.
up. It's. I think the animation is good. I think it's a bit more dated, but I think it goes for the. It's just more trapped by it being very much more realistic, more very much down to earth, in a way that works for the movie at the time, but ages kind of badly. But there's pretty like some express moments, like when they go down the volcano.
Yeah, like there are cartoonier moments, I guess, but often it feels that the surfing itself can look kind of
Yeah,
stale. Like they're just moving very rigidly through the waves, and there's like not a lot of movement on the end of the penguin.
yeah. I think.
But the waves themselves look actually incredible. I'm gonna admit that. Like the water and the waves, I looked up how they made them, and they had like to write a program to like simulate the way the waves move and
Like,
spin. Like the water gets
like
sucked
they don't
in.
want to just say, "Oh, Surf's Up is just a bad movie," because I think it shows, like I mentioned before, they want to make a movie that animators could have fun with, and you can see at certain moments that they probably had a lot of fun animating this. I think it. I think the animation just works for what it's doing. Honestly, it's not a bad looking movie.
Yeah, in isolation, if you like remove the plot, you just look at the pretty images. It's not the worst
Yeah, I
movie.
think. I think to say a final say very quickly. I think it's not just to point Happy Feet's a movie made by an tool and their stuff's up. It's like Happy Feet, even besides Jaws Miller. That's a Jaws Miller is a piece of art made by very talented people, and Surf's Up is also a piece of art made by talented people. It's just they have different ways, and the way they class is very interesting because they just have different missions, different goals.
Yeah, I thought the same right now. Like their goals, like they reach their goals, but like they have very different goals. So the results are also like on very different layers. Yeah. Okay, so let's go figure out. Let's go on a journey to figure out what's
Yeah,
next
we
month.
just
Uh,
109. Let's
yes,
see what
one
the
per.
109 is. Okay. Both are comedy movies about someone resorting to drastic measures in order to obtain acceptance 2 or 3 years in for prestigious scholars, stealing Harvard and all this country. This is
Wow,
so good.
this is we're gonna watch 2000s college comedies. Our lives are cursed.
We did it, man. We finally only the third episode.
We finally found some. We finally called something really bad.
But
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you everyone for listening to this podcast as always. Thank you everyone. See you at moving. See you at Gemini movies next month, next time. Bye.
Bye.